Welcome to Travel Talk with Joy. I'm Joy. I've traveled to all 50 states. I've been to all 7 continents. On most of my adventures, I do it with my husband, who's a full-time wheelchair user. Come meet amazing people who travel through life a little differently as we explore the world of accessible travel. Let's go! Hello, everyone. We are so happy that you can be with us today. And I have a super interesting guest today that I've been following for a while. Mason Branstrator is a guy that has been only injured for a few years, and he has come on the scene of being an influencer and also just super positive light in the disability community. And I wanted to learn his secret and to learn how did he recover so fast? You know, my background is in spinal cord injury, and I've worked in different hospitals and met so many people, and Mason is different. So everyone, meet Mason. Thank you for being with us, Mason.
Wow, thank you for that amazing intro. I really appreciate that. I hope I have a secret to share with you guys. I guess we'll find out on this podcast.
We are going to explore it for sure. So I just want you to start in the beginning and tell us a little bit about like the day of your injury, how your spinal cord injury happened, and then we'll go from there.
For sure. So, almost 4 years ago now, on January 18th, I had gone for a normal day of downhill skiing. And as you know, I was at the top of the hill, super excited to go on my first run of the day. And on my way down, I was going a little bit fast. It was an icy day, and I hit one of my favorite jumps. And the last thing I remember thinking is, I'm going a little bit fast, and that was it. And I totally spaced out after that. You know, I have no recollection of what happened, but I went off the jump. I flipped backwards because my weight was too far back, and I landed on my back and neck and broke my T12 vertebrae, which paralyzed me from the waist down immediately. I was rushed to the ICU where I came to consciousness and was informed that I was paralyzed and may never walk again, would likely have to use a wheelchair. Uh, and my life was forever changed from that moment on. And when I was in the ICU in the early days, I remember realizing that I had a choice to make, that I could either lay in the bed and feel sorry for myself and let the world go on around me while I pitied myself in the bed, or I could do everything within my power to make the best of my situation and to stay positive despite the major trauma that I had just endured. And at that point, the choice was pretty obvious. You know, you make the best of the cards you're dealt, and that's exactly what I did.
Okay, so going back to that initial injury. So you came out of um, the fog, the initial kind of blackout that a lot of people experience. And what was your initial thought of paralysis? Had you ever known anybody else in a wheelchair? Have you ever had any exposure with that?
Absolutely not. I had no idea even what paralysis was. You know, my first thought was, well, my legs are definitely broken. That's why they're not working. That's why I can't feel them. Uh, Clearly not. You know, I was paralyzed, and that's why I couldn't move them. And yeah, I didn't know anything about paralysis. So every single thing was new to me and really to my family. We didn't really have a lot of experience at all, and started learning everything from the time that I got paralyzed to where I am now, almost 4 years later. And I feel like I know, I don't know, I've read like the novel on living with spinal cord injury, and I learn new things every single day.
So where was your injury? What state?
I was in Duluth, my hometown, at Spirit Mountain, and yeah.
And then you went to rehab in Colorado?
Yeah, so I was flown to Craig Hospital in Denver 10 days following my injury. There was a bed that opened up, and I was super fortunate to be able to get flown there. And once I entered in the doors of Craig, everything really started to change in terms of my perspective. Up until that point, the people around me couldn't give me a lot of certainty or hope or
Mhm.
positivity. But when I got to Craig, I felt that not just by what people were saying, but how people acted around me.
Yeah. Craig is one of the best rehab centers. You really were so fortunate to have that for your rehab experience for sure. Right away at Craig, I'm sure they were like getting you out in the community and making sure that you weren't staying in bed and that you were working hard.
Yeah, for sure. It was unfortunately COVID at that time, so
Oh.
I wasn't able to get outside for a while, but fortunately, there was a very large community of people in the hospital at the time that I was paralyzed that were also newly paralyzed. So I was immediately exposed to a community of people going through what I was going through, which is one of the most important things in healing is community.
Absolutely. So, some people get out of rehab and they they ignore the community and they're either thinking I'm not going to be like them because I'm going to walk again. I think that's number one why people say I don't need that. How did you really lean into community? Because through your social feeds, you see that you're around community, the wheelchair community, a lot, and are really leaning into that for support. So, how do you think you had that different shift of saying, "No, I'm going to be in this community, and I'm not just going to be going, but I'm going to walk. I'm going to walk. I'm going to walk."
I've always been a people oriented person and drawn strength from my peers. And I think that at the beginning, I was able to balance both the mindset of I'm going to walk, but also really leaning into my community of peers that were in wheelchairs at the same time. There was never a one or the other for me. It was always a both and.
Mm, that's unusual. Another reason you're very unusual. Uh, so as far as your physical ability, how did your legs progress? I see sometimes you using a walker. What is your leg function now?
Yeah, great question. So at the beginning, I had no idea what I was going to get back, right? I was incomplete at the time of my diagnosis. So really anything could happen. And I started getting some quad function back, a little hamstring function, and then my spasms started coming in stronger. And through this whole process of just really trying new things and trying to move my body in different ways, I found that I didn't have enough function really to stand up using my legs on their own, but I could leverage my spasms with
Mhm.
my upper body to get myself standing in a quite functional way. And so, kind of in this journey of learning how to, trying to regain function, learning how to use that function, battling with, I want to walk again. At the start, everybody really wants to walk. That's all they can think
Mhm.
about. That's, you know, what controls recovery in a lot of ways. And I was fortunate to be able to break out of that cycle at around year two when I realized that my function was only going to take me so far. And it was really time to lean into all of the different opportunities that there were with paralyzed life and living and recreation and community. And that's when I really took that deeper dive into being a part of my community. But up until that
Yeah.
point, I said no to opportunities like group trips with other people with paralysis and hanging out because I was too focused on rehab and therapy. And it was really only when I accepted right where I was with my function, which was being able to stand and then using that functionally, uh, that I was able to combine both of those things completely. And it got to a point where I realized my recovery is only as important as the things that it's going to give me in everyday life. And so I found that I could stand up and put my wheelchair in my car. Great. You know, that allows me to get in my van faster. That's perfect. I found I could stand up and reach things off the top shelf. I found I could stand up in the shower. I could stand up to stretch my legs. And that was functional enough for me, you know, and once I discovered those things along my journey, I decided to move on and focus on other things because as far as functional walking went, it was never going to take me anywhere faster than my wheelchair could. And
Mhm.
I've always been of the mindset that life is just about experiencing things and, yeah, really just experiencing things. And why would I
Yeah.
let my physical body hold me up if a wheelchair can take me places much faster?
Yeah, well, I always used to say to my patients, you hope for the best and plan for the worst. And so you're able to live those two parallel lives instead of saying, I have to do one or the other. And I think that's what's really, what you're saying is it got you through where you said, okay, I can use my functional abilities of standing, but I'm going to continue to live my life and not get in that stuck place that I feel a lot of people get stuck there. So, you are big on adventure, and I'm assuming you were a risk taker before because only guys that are going off ski jumps are risk takers, you were. And so you had that sense of adventure and um, high risk activity and also just like high risk or high activity, you're someone that likes to do lots of things. So talk a little bit like recreationally what you have found through some of the fun stuff you've been doing.
For sure. I guess I want to start by saying I would caution you in saying that, you know, I was very much a risk taker before, because I think at the age of 17, you're not quite able to understand the implications of those recreational activities. And a lot of people,
True.
since, you know, after my injury, they hear my story and then they say, wow, like what a risk taker, like that's why you're in this situation. And it's like there were, you know, thousands, like hundreds of thousands of people doing like that same thing across the world, and only a handful of them got injured in the way that I did. And definitely, yes, it was more risky. I didn't realize it at the time. And I always felt like after at this point in my recovery and life, it doesn't really bother me at all, because I am getting older and understanding that it is a risky thing, and I actually try to mitigate risks now that I take,
Mhm.
um, the older I get. But earlier on, that kind of statement really hurt me because I it was very, you know, the injury to me is a really traumatic thing, you know. And so um, to feel like it was my fault because I was taking that risk um, was really hurtful. And I don't want to, you know, I'm not pointing fingers at you, Joy, but
Mhm.
I think it's important for all people to know that saying something like that can be hurtful to people who get injured in these ways, um,
Yeah. No,
especially
I'm thank
earlier
you
on.
for telling me that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think maybe if I rephrase, you're an adventurous person. And
I like that better.
let's do that one. You're an adventurous person, and so, adventurous before injury, you want to be adventurous after injury. And so that's where I see like you say yes to so much, and which is amazing, like the things that you put yourselves in. So what are some of the favorites that you've been able to do and you're like, wow, that was rad, that was awesome?
Totally. Um, Gosh, a number of things. The standout activities would be mountain biking, adaptive mountain biking, and the sport activities that I've done. I ran a marathon and finished an Olympic triathlon. and the sheer struggle and grit that it took to finish those races was really a sign to me that I can still do really hard things. So that was super important. And then the mountain biking is just magical to feel like you're still able to get out and do the same things that you were pre-accident and explore nature in really unheard of ways. Like this is all stuff that's come to light in the last decade, and I'm super fortunate and grateful to have been paralyzed in this time period, because otherwise I wouldn't have all these opportunities and be able to use all of these fantastic mobility devices.
Absolutely. So, which organizations have you worked with most closely to do these things?
High fives, number one, I would say, in terms of um, funding equipment. Northland Adaptive Recreation is my hometown um, adaptive rec place, and they were able to lend me a lot of equipment here, like cross country ski bucket, sports chair, actually a racing chair that I completed my triathlon in, and got me involved in a number of things in the area. Definitely have gotten some funding from Kelly Brush as well
Mhm.
for a couple different things. And yeah, I think there's a ton of awesome grant organizations that help support people with all sorts of different disabilities. And actually, um, I need to plug a grant finder that has just come out, who my friend Advocacy Abby uh, on Instagram created. And I don't know, how can we link something, Joy? Can we?
Yeah, I'll put it in the comments and in all of our posts.
Okay. All right. It's just at grants.supportnow.org. And it's a great grant finder that you can search different things based on criteria and disability for funding and resources.
That's great to know about. I did not know about that.
Yeah. It's a
That's
super
awesome.
new thing. So there's still like daily adding new grants, but there's a ton of stuff on there already.
That's so great. I think sometimes there's so much out there, but people don't know how to find it, because
Mm-hmm.
there's really generous organizations that are, whether they're putting in equipment or, organizations like Kelly Brush, they're having donors give equipment, that kind of thing. And people don't quite know how to find it. So I love this. We will definitely share that. Um, so talk a little bit about the Olympic distance triathlon you did. What does that entail?
It is a mile swim, a gosh, there's a while ago now, a 24-mile bike, I think 25-mile bike, and a 6-mile run. And I previously to my injury hated swimming because
Mm.
I have a hole in my left eardrum. So I was always worried about getting like water in there and then getting an infection. And so I really didn't swim that much because I was afraid of that. And then water just became this fear of mine. And so after my injury, I don't know how I decided to do this triathlon, but I just was like, I'm going to challenge myself. And swimming was a part of it. And I learned how to swim for this thing and worked my way up to a mile. And at the end, near when I did it, I was swimming a mile twice a week, and in my lake, open water swims through the weeds and through the dark water. And yeah, it
That
was one of
terrifies me.
those. Yeah, it is a little terrifying, and I think it's a great metaphor for anything new in life. It's the hardest thing is always taking that first step, jumping into the cold water and just completely submerging yourself and having to figure it out and just go forward because that's the only way. And so that was super important. And that I love swimming because of that.
Man, what a skill. Like you said, you didn't even like it before, and through disability, you become a great swimmer and could do it in an Olympic triathlon. That's incredible. Um, you are a person that has a lot of grit. I've always said to people on the show, like it seems like that's a common denominator of success after injury is grit. And I think it's one of those kind of things like you can develop it some, but I think it's something that's in you. It's, I have brown hair and it's something that's like in your soul. You got it in spades, man. Incredible.
Thank you.
So let's go on to talk about some things with travel, because obviously some of your sports and your things you've been doing have brought you into travel for sure. So when you were first going, let's talk about airplane first. When you were first getting into that process of flying again and traveling again, um, how did that feel for you?
I think the first couple times it was definitely scary, but after that, I realized that it just wasn't so bad. And the most important thing that I found out really quickly was that my experience was going to be dependent on how I came into it and the kind of confidence and know how that I brought. And if I knew how everything was going to go, then I could really direct the people around me at the airport to make it seamless. But, it's a great example of being able to direct your own care
Hmm.
flying with a disability because
Absolutely.
that is the number one thing that you have to take responsibility of after you get an injury and need help, because everyone around you is going to know like nothing. Like nobody's a trained specialist. Even in the rehab hospitals, even when you are around specialists, they can't know everything about the care that you need. I mean, you really need to be your own advocate 24/7 with a disability.
That is huge. That is literally gold right there because like that translates to anything, whether it's, something in the community, something at the airport, something, you might have a caregiver in your home and you need to direct your care with your caregiver. And, what I saw in one of your posts, um, when you needed to have assistance with getting your Firefly, which we'll talk about that a little bit of, taken apart, and the way to be have assertiveness versus aggressiveness, and how that relationship within the flight attendant was able to, by the end it was a soft, nice relationship that you had developed with them because of the way you handled that. So, let's talk about Firefly for a second. And how that goes when you get on a plane. Talk a little bit about what a Firefly is, and then how you do that, because that's a tough one to navigate.
For sure. A Firefly is a third wheel electric e assist that basically turns your manual wheelchair into a super chair that can go 13 miles per hour. It lifts your casters up so it can navigate a lot of terrain that you wouldn't otherwise be able to navigate, like gravel, grass, you know, cobblestone, all sorts
Coachella.
of Coachella. Yeah, right. The
Yeah.
fields of Coachella. Uh, all sorts of things, outdoor music festivals for sure. And I have had the privilege of having it for almost my entire paralyzed existence. And so I almost know no different. And it just allows me to show up as a normal person, unbothered by my mobility challenges in a lot of situations where otherwise my wheelchair would be a limiting factor. So I take it everywhere. I take it when I travel. I take it through airports. I take it on the plane. I put it back on when I get off the plane on the other side, and then I shoot around every single place. I was at a conference for spinal cord injury research, and it was carpeted, and I had my Firefly, so I was just ripping around everywhere, and it was no problem. While everybody else is pushing through this thick carpet, I just had no problem with stuff. And so, having it is a non-negotiable for me, and so I'll take it everywhere. And when I fly with it, there can be a lot of confusion and misconceptions with all of the people working at the airport. First you check in, and they have to, give you a tag for your wheelchair. They might give you a little bit of grief. They're like, what is that thing? Does it detach? How does it work? And I just tell them, yep, it detaches. I'm going to put it on the plane. And they look at me super funny. And I'm like, yep, like it's no big deal. I'm going to put it on the plane. It breaks all the way down. They're like, okay. So I get past them. Now you're going through security, and you go through, and generally they never give you any grief for it. Even if you have a second battery, if you just put the battery through with your carry-on, they'll see that it's a part of the Firefly, and they won't flag it or anything. So you go through even with your extra battery. Security person is like, "Oh, that's cool." You detach it, you get your pat down. Now you're at the gate, and here's where things get interesting. They're going to try to tell you at the top that you really can't bring it on the plane, and you keep your confidence. You say, yes, I'm going to bring it on the plane. It breaks down, blah, blah, blah. As long as you can get down to the plane with your Firefly and you find the flight attendants, they are more than likely very understanding that you want the Firefly on the plane because you're worried that it could get damaged if it goes below the plane. So at that point, you kind of talk to them and you say, is there a wheelchair compartment on the plane? Sometimes there's designated wheelchair compartments where they are actually required to remove any baggage from that area and store anything, any mobility devices that can fit there. And so sometimes your Firefly fits completely there. Other times you have to break it down and you can put it in the overhead bin. But I've flown over 30, 40 times with my Firefly and got it on the plane every single time with no problem.
Ooh.
Well, actually, I shouldn't say with no problem. I had to advocate for myself. I had to be confident. I had to know what was going to happen next. And it's just a great story for any type of thing because it's the persistency and the confidence that allows you to be in charge of the situation, which is so important with a disability.
Abs- yes, for sure. So when all these times when you've gotten your Firefly on, did you still go ahead and gate check your wheelchair?
Yes, I did. And I've fortunately never had a problem with my wheelchair getting damaged. So fingers crossed.
Yes. And I think that the Firefly has so many more like technical aspects with all the brake um the lines, and there's so much more that can, I think, get damaged easier in a Firefly.
For sure. And especially when you see in videos online how people handle stuff and they just like toss it on the,
Mhm.
you know, luggage cart. It's like, yeah, I don't want my Firefly down there.
No, no. So, a lot of people with disabilities are so hesitant to travel because I think they're nervous about being assertive, and I think they're nervous about, what's going to happen with their equipment. Like for you, what is the biggest advice that you would give to people that are so hesitant about travel?
I There should be like a word for this because it's not just about travel. It's about being anywhere where you couldn't get the proper repair for your wheelchair. And it's like wheelchair anxiety. You
Yeah.
could be anywhere and you could get a flat, you could have a piece even loosen and then it's off the wrong way. Whatever it is, if you're not prepared to take care of your wheelchair, something could go wrong wherever you are. And travel is no different. And I think a lot of people underestimate how sturdy their wheelchairs actually are. I beat the crap out of my chair. And so I'm pretty confident when I get on the plane that whatever they do to it down there, it's going to be fine. Uh, that's part of it. But for a couple of years after my injury, I was just so worried anywhere I went that something was going to go wrong with it and that I would be stranded somewhere. And that's just a part of living in a wheelchair. And travel is kind of no different. You know, it can be more of a hassle with the planes, but you reach a certain point where you get a number of years out where you realize, all right, if I've gone this many years and nothing major has gone wrong, I'm probably going to be fine. And if
Yeah.
something happens, and I'll figure out how to deal with it. And it's just no big deal. So
Experience is worth it.
yeah, I think a number of things, but the most important is just realizing the things that are outside of your control and being okay with that. There's only so many variables that you can account for with anything in
Yeah, for
life.
sure. For sure. So, one of the other interesting things about you is that you have really just launched as an influencer. And I feel that so much of it is because you're very honest with challenges you have. Um, but tell me a little bit about, like, was this something you said, you know what? I think I want to start making content. I think I have something to share. Like, how did this happen so quickly?
It just kind of randomly happened. One time, I decided that I was going to make a video because I thought it was cool. And then I decided I was going to make a video about the Firefly because I was like, I love this thing, man. It gets me around all over the place. Like, I want to show people that I like this and I use this and it's great for me. And then all of that kind of snowballed into where I am today. And along my journey, people started reaching out and they were like, this is so cool. I've never seen this before. Thank you for sharing this. Thank you for sharing your struggles. And I've always took pride in being able to share resources and help people. And after going to Craig and realize and then going on to life afterwards and talking to people who didn't get an opportunity to go to Craig or a bigger, more specialized rehab, and realizing the disparities in terms of education surrounding spinal cord injury that they got versus what I got, I was like, all right, this is more than just a calling. This is a duty for me. I feel like it became a a non-negotiable, something that I needed to do to share these resources with other people. So I constantly am reflecting on what my role in this community is, and I have a lot of big things coming for people, and I want to share as many resources as I can.
It's great. So we talked a little bit about the Firefly from Rio Mobility. Um, talk about Freedom Trax and then also Spoony Threads, because I think those are two both very interesting brands that you're working with.
Yes. So first of all, Firefly. All of my stuff generally is if you use code Mason and checkout, you can get free shipping. Um,
My
and
husband did it.
also, eh,
Yeah, literally. He bought the
that's a
Firefly because of you. So you got the whatever it is, the fee,
heck yeah,
because
heck
you
yeah,
showed so many good videos of. I was like, you got to get one of these.
yeah. That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, and I also on my website masonbrand.com masonbran.com you can find all the videos that I've made on the Firefly in the past and the Freedom Tracks, and yeah, I want to keep adding to that website as a resource for people in terms of mobility equipment. But so the Freedom Tracks is a basically attachable tank for your wheelchair. You roll onto these treads and then it allows you to go over terrain that you'd be able to access with the Firefly, like grass, gravel, um, stuff like that, but also sand, which is something that
Ooh.
the Firefly cannot do and is a super rare thing for wheelchairs to be able to do. There's a couple different options, sand mats, action track chair, but one of the most portable and versatile piece of equipment to access sand with a wheelchair is the Freedom Trax. And
How
you
much
roll
does it
right
weigh?
on. It weighs 75 pounds, which um, is, pretty heavy, but as far as the how small it is, it doesn't take up that much space. So if you have a ramp where you can roll it into your car, that works fine, or something like that. Or if you just have an able-bodied person that can lift it into your car, or some type of pulley system. Um, yeah, so that's the Freedom Trax. It's pretty rad. It's the most affordable thing that can get wheelchair users on sand, and they're just coming out with a Freedom Track. They're calling it the FTX, which is going to be a new model of the Freedom Trax. And I'm sure by the time this comes out that they'll have it released, or I think they've already talked about it publicly. Um, but yeah, so that's going to be another addition to the arsenal of things. And the difference is that it's a wider frame. So instead of rolling on right next to the treads, you're rolling onto a platform in the middle of the treads. And so it's more
Mm,
sturdy side to side and more universal. So you don't have to adjust it for each different wheelchair. You just roll right on and then strap yourself in.
interesting.
So
I haven't
yeah, and
seen that
then
before. I'll check that out.
yeah, it's pretty sweet. Freedom Trax, freedomtrax.com. And then Spoony Threads is
Yes.
a adaptive clothing company that creates basically clothing that's not only comfy but also versatile to the needs of many different physical disabilities. Whether you have an ostomy bag or you have ports or you just have mobility challenges, they make adaptations for clothing for to meet all of those different types of needs. And so I'm always super honored to work with them in pushing out these awesome adaptive clothing pieces, because I think there's not too many clothing companies that are looking at creating
Mhm.
accessible clothing for all people in one package. Um, and yeah, it's just really exciting. They're looking out for people that don't have options.
No, I think it's really cool that the company is thinking, outside the box of if someone has a port, a colostomy, like how can we help that person have an easier life? I love it. You were very open and authentic about your life. You do posts where I've seen you talk about bowel bladder issues, the personal issues of I always say like the behind the scenes of that people don't know about unless they really have led a life with a spinal cord injury. Everyone just looks at you and says, "Oh, his legs don't work." But it's so much more than that. And was that like a big choice of yours of saying, "Okay, I want to create content that really that a new injury would relate with?" Like, how did you really go to that in your head?
I still want to do that more, because at the time that I started creating content, I was already 2 years out, and I kind of don't exactly remember what it was like at the beginning for
Mhm.
really newly injured people. And I hope by showing and doing everything that about the ways that I live now, that people can see that. If not for them right at the time that they see it, they can uh, realize it in their future. But yeah, I think that life with a spinal cord injury is unbelievably multifaceted. And for people to see every aspect in a real and raw way, it makes it more acceptable. That's not the word that I'm looking for, though. I don't know. I think it makes it more ordinary, or it's not
Normalizes.
so weird. Yeah, yeah. It normalizes it. Yeah, for sure. Because
Yeah.
I forget constantly. Yeah, at the beginning of my injury, when I realized I was different now, I had this thought that came back to me every time I would be out in public and I would have a strange experience. I would just think, man, I'm everybody sees me as like really different. Like they've never seen somebody like me before. That's why I'm having these weird experiences. Like I just have to be okay with that. And I tried to tell people that other people that were newly injured that early on, so that they didn't feel so different. In a way, realizing that you are different makes it more. Um, Sorry, I'm blanking on words. It's hard to describe. You know, it's it's really different. And a lot of times when you come into a room as a wheelchair user, you might be the first wheelchair user that most of those people have ever met. And so that is a really strange thing to have to deal with for the rest of your life. And there's a lot of things that come along with that that we don't realize are happening to us. But my biggest takeaway, so I went into a high school the other day and spoke in a couple of classes for an injury prevention program. And I was surrounded by people, you know, younger people who had never seen or spoken to a person in a wheelchair in their life. And it was just kind of a bizarre experience for them, probably, right? But people looked at me and they were just fascinated and they were in awe that I was coming in to speak to them and I was doing well in my life and experiencing things and just living life to the fullest. They just could hardly believe it. You know, they were like, wow, this is really cool. And so I think if we come at life with that perspective of that we're different, but we have overcome so many things, and that people are in awe of us rather than ostracizing us, you know, rather
That
than seeing us
is
as different.
that's a shift, a mind shift, of they're in awe and they're curious, but on your side, it may feel like I'm being ostracized. But it's because people don't put the words out of saying, "Man, like this is incredible what you've done with your life and you have overcome so much." Like people don't use communication. And so to the person that's the newly injured person or the person like even at your level is like it feels more like uh being unincluded.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is actually they're in awe and they're so curious about how you did it, but they don't say the words. And so then it just feels negative. So I think
Yes.
if people become more comfortable of saying, "Hey man, you know, uh, uh how'd you get in a wheelchair?" Or, "Hey man, it's awesome. I just saw you ski. That was an incredible run," whatever. Then it becomes a conversation instead of just feeling on the outside of society.
Yeah, totally. And it always confused me why people are super opposed to the average Joe coming up to them and being like, wow, like this is so inspiring, or like, thank you for like, you know, I don't know. I mean, people have never seen you before and they're trying to say something positive to you. And those are those moments where someone comes up to you and says, wow, like I am in awe of you right now. Like this is incredible. This is really wonderful. And people in the community take it negatively, and I just have never gotten that, because we are different. We've been through a lot. Our lives have been hard, and we should be recognized for being able to show up every single day and bring our best.
Mm. That is so, so true. And I think it's that whole thing again of like attitude. Your attitude to way that interaction happens can completely change that person's attitude about what they're going to do next time. So if someone says, "Man, I can't believe you're out," I could be like getting groceries. You could be like, "Oh, hell yeah, I'm out getting groceries. Like, what do you think I'm going to do?" Like that's one way of handling it. And being like, "Yeah, man, gotta make dinner. Having a great day though." It's the same. It's you have two choices of your attitude towards life and your attitude towards other people. And when you react one way, it changes that person's attitude towards disability on the positive or on the negative.
Yes, totally. And
Yeah.
that comes back to too that interaction that I had on the plane, where even though this flight attendant was fighting me and saying, "No, we can't put your Firefly here. It's not going to work. It's not going to fit." I just kept being persistent in a calm and composed manner, and that allowed that situation to eventually end up as positive. And
Yeah.
yeah, so if we can keep calm and realize that people around us are trying to be good people and they're trying to do the right thing, and noticing in our head, like, wow, this person came up to me because they are in awe of me. That is kind of a cool thing. That is pretty cool.
Lot to be in awe about of Mason, that's for
Yeah.
sure. Uh, so, what's been the most rewarding thing of being a content creator up to this point?
Meeting everybody that I've been able to meet. And
Mm.
whether that be people that have reached out to me to say thank you, I'm going through what you're going through and this has really helped me, whether that be other content creators and leaders in the community that are all on their own paths of trying to help our community in the best way that they know how and the things that interest them, and realizing that we are all people trying to do our best and that we're all helping each other in ways, and the people who come to me and say thank you are the reason that I do everything that I do, because
Mm.
it allows me to know that I'm making a difference in the lives of others, and that is the most fulfilling thing that you could ever have in life.
So, often after a life-changing injury, people find new purpose. Do you say this is your purpose?
This is definitely my purpose. And I would say I've always been one, not to say that things happen to you for a reason, but that things happen to you and you have the privilege and opportunity to create reason from the things that happen to us.
Oh, that should be a bumper sticker. That is gold. Like it is so true that we all have opportunity to to create those reasons. And yeah, that's that's really really good. Um I was talking to Wheelchair Poppy, Kevin, Anthony the other day, and he
Like,
mentioned you.
yeah,
And he said you know, young guys come out and they're already seeing guys like Mason that are showing what life is like immediately, you know? And for some of these guys, it took them 5-10 years to get rolling where you're rolling. And to you know so many spinal cord injuries are young guys. That's the demographic. And to have you be out there sharing your life in a real way, um, showing them how important wheelchair community is. That's one thing also that I see in you is your post is about you, but it's often about the communities that are with you. So whether it's the Wheel with Me Foundation, or you were recently at a different camp, like these camps that are full of wheelchair users of different types. And people can see like, okay, maybe that's one of the keys. is surrounding yourself with people that can understand your situation and push you.
Yes. Yeah, I
Mm.
totally agree. I don't know what more there is to say about that. Anthony has been a really good mentor for me for a long time through my journey of being a content creator and leader. And he's always made a really good impression on me of doing things for the right reasons and looking out for my people and for our community. And that's been super, super important. And that's the main thing that I've realized in coming this far in seemingly a relatively short amount of time
Mhm.
is just that the most important thing is always going to be looking out for my community, doing the right things for my people, being a part of my community, hearing them, talking to them, having real conversations when creating new mobility devices, services, resource finders, getting their input and seeing what is most important to them. Because no spinal cord injury is the same, no physical disability is the same,
Mhm.
no person is the same. And we all have super valuable input for everything.
Mm. For sure. So, people pre-injury have like a definition of what happiness looked like in their life. What does happiness look like for you now?
Happiness for me is helping other people be happy or have better quality of life or connect with other people. I think that the most important piece of the human existence is connecting with other people and
Mm.
doing the right thing for your community and for the people that you love. It all comes back to love, right?
Mm.
And I think what I do, what my work is a way to show my love to everybody in my community and let them know, hey, I care about you. I want you to know about this resource. I think it could help you. I want you to know about this mobility device. I think it could open doors for you. And to honor other people. Yeah, so much of my happiness comes from the way I affect other people. And it always has. And I have never felt more purpose and meaning than through the work that I get to do now for my community. And I constantly open myself to feedback and say, what do you think of this? Like, what do you think of what I'm doing? How could I make it better? How could I provide more value to people? How could I reach more people? And yeah, I would say happiness to me is helping other people.
Well, then you're in the right line of work because the help that you're able to spread through social media is huge. Before maybe you were just connecting one to one. Now it's one to thousands. And through those connections, they find other connections. And I think some of your best work is when you can really direct people to organizations that can help them more, like High Fives and Kelly Brush, and opening their world like your world was opened. You've been very, very fortunate that other people have seen you and said, I want to reach into that guy. And I love it when people like you and Anthony and Chelsea, they pay it forward to other people, because at the end of the day, you don't want to keep all that goodness just for yourself.
1,000%. And there's always more than enough to go around for everyone.
Absolutely. I saw something on your posts where you said if you could go all the way back again, and, you know, not have that accident, you probably would stick with what your life ended up as now. Do you still stand by that?
Yeah, I will always stand by that. I
Mm.
think I don't know why I stand by it so much, but I have a constant realization that every day that goes on, I feel like I'm content with everything and my life and the value that I've been fortunate to be able to provide to other people. And so I think that's a really big thing around happiness, too. Happiness can be content, purpose and meaning, helping other people. It can be so many things.
Mm.
Early on, after my injury, I thought that happiness was just a feeling. But after having more time pass, I realized that it's something much deeper than that.
Mm. It is. You're deep for a guy your age. You're an old, old soul, Mason.
Thank you.
That is,
That's my
it is
favorite
not a,
compliment.
it is, put that on your resume. People
I
say I'm an
will.
old soul. Uh, I mean, it'll get you far. But yeah, no, I mean, I just feel like your maturity is unusual. Your desire for others is unusual. And I just feel you're really blessed because of the blessings you're giving out to other people. Um, so thank you. Thank you for what you're doing in the community. Thank you for your time here. I want more blessings to fall upon you because of what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Joy. Thank you for having me on today. This has been wonderful. I've learned a
Absolutely.
lot myself. So thank you.
Well, we always end with a popcorn round of questions, 10 round of easy questions that the masses will want to know about you.
Oh,
Are you ready?
okay. I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. Mountains or beach?
Beach.
That took a long time. Uh, essential travel item.
Wheelchair. No, Firefly.
I knew it. I was like, if you don't
Firefly.
say Firefly. Okay. Uh, last good book you read.
Haven't really read a book. No, right
It's
now I'm
okay.
reading Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. He's a great philosopher.
Oh, yeah. See, I saw. It's Braveheart, right? No, Gladiator. Gladiator.
Oh, the movie? Yeah,
Marcus
I
Aurelius.
haven't seen
Yeah.
it.
Oh, you have to see it after you read the book
I
because
should. Yeah.
Marcus Aurelius is in Gladiator,
Heck yeah.
or his character. Okay. Favorite airplane snack.
Favorite airplanes? Like the ones that? Oh, definitely like the cookie, like the ginger
No, what
cookie.
you
Or
what you bring on a plane.
oh,
What
what
do you
I
bring
bring
on a
on a plane.
plane?
Okay.
Your go-to.
Uh,
Yes.
I literally just bring water and then I wait for that biscuit snack.
You're you're a young man, of course. You're like, nope, I'm going with the economical route for the biscuit
Yep.
snack. Uh, dream vacation.
Backpacking Europe, which I am going to do.
I love it. Um, person that inspires you most.
My mom.
Hmm, love that. Uh, okay, last couple. Favorite movie?
Full Circle. Trevor Kennison and Barry Corbett.
L- love him and the movie.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, and finally, best band or artist.
Peach Pit.
Peach Pit.
Peach Pit is an indie rock band. I like them a lot.
Okay, have you seen him in concert yet?
I have.
Excellent.
Yes.
Uh, well, that was easy, nothing hard. But thank you. Thank you again for being with us. And we look forward to watching so much more of your content in the future. And um, finally, also, thank you to Accessible Journeys for being one of our partners here at Wheel the World. Check out their magazine if you want more information about accessible journeys around the world. And we hope to see everyone next time. Have a great day.
Awesome. Bye, everyone.